For those of you who have just joined, you should be able to see the chat box on the right-hand side. Do let us know what country you're joining from, because we know we have people registered from all over, well, Europe anyway. And also, if you want to, do let us know what industry your business is in. We can bear that in mind when we're answering questions later on. So, and thank you everybody for taking time out of your day to join us. Just quickly to go through the agenda. Today's event is all about increasing your e-commerce ROI by putting together a smart e-commerce strategy for your business. And a really important part to this is identifying your business's specific needs. We have a fireside chat format today. So we've brought together two e-commerce experts, but who come from different angles. So one of them is a product manager, and then somebody who works directly with clients and product deployment. We are going to split this webinar into 4 parts. We are first going to kick off with identifying business needs. And an important note, the webinar will not take any more than 45 minutes. And as I say that, I'm going to start my timer so I keep us on track. And that 45 minutes will include a Q&A. So I am Rebecca Doherty, and I look after marketing with our Adobe Commerce solution partners, such as Atwix, for the EMEA region at Adobe. And I'm really happy to be here to moderate this fireside chat today. Before I introduce your speakers, I'm going to give you a few housekeeping rules. First and foremost, all of your microphones are already muted. They were muted on entry. Secondly, and importantly, on the right-hand side within the session, you'll see a Q&A box. So really, to get the most out of the next 45 minutes while you're listening, jot down any questions or clarifications or something you want our speakers to dig further into, and please add them to the Q&A box. And also a tip for you. The attendees are able to actually pin a speaker to your screen. So if you click the 3 dots beside the speaker's video card and then press pin. This is really useful, obviously, when a speaker is sharing their screen. And if you want to make either the screen share bigger on the screen or the speaker bigger. Okay, now on to your speakers. First up, I'll introduce Yaroslav. Yaroslav Rogoza is the Chief Technology Officer at Atwix. He has 13 years experience working in e-commerce under his belt, and also 13 years with what was Magento Commerce and will now refer to as Adobe Commerce throughout this presentation. And to boot, he is actually also a twice Magento master. I hope I got that right, Yaroslav. And he has actually contributed code to the core Adobe Commerce product. So he's worked directly with our development team at Adobe. And we have Eric Erway. He is currently leading merchant and shopping experiences, working as group product manager for Adobe Commerce at Adobe. So a big welcome to you both. We are going to kick off with part 1, and this will take around 8 to 10 minutes or so. So no pressure with keeping to time. So just to start and introduce that part, a distinctive feature of any really smart business that sells online is the ability to manage resources in the most effective way possible. And we all know that a smart strategy is driven by good data, organized data, and clarity on true business needs, and crucially, applying this in the practical sense. So today we're going to be talking about e-commerce, selling online specifically, of course, and with all digital projects, now even more than ever before, we need to keep the customer in mind. We need to constantly consider their experiences within the business. So Yaroslav and Eric, the first question I want to put to you today is, in your experience, where should a merchant start with a new e-commerce project? How do they identify business needs? Yaroslav, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, and merchants usually choose Adobe Commerce because the system always provides options. And options in terms of how exactly you want to organize different functional parts of your e-commerce store. So, for example, if you need a sophisticated search, here you go. You just can go to Magento Marketplace and choose any from the solutions there. The same applicable for almost everything, like payment options, delivery options. However, the variety of the options might be a pitfall for you. Eventually, you might end up choosing a lot of whistles and bells that will do more harm to your business than benefit. So first of all, you need to determine what is really important in the commerce part of your business model. For example, should your store be search-oriented, like it's fair for stores like marketplaces like Amazon, or user journey oriented? It's applicable for furniture store where you need to configure the product before you can buy it. So determine what functional parts will be helpful for your customers and you, definitely as a merchant, first of all. So also you need to think about the data flow. If you already have ERP, CRM, POS, or other system, think of what data should be interconnected with Magento or with your e-commerce platform. And try to stay away from I need everything, because in most cases it's very dangerous for your start. And eventually with the correct strategy, you will have everything, but you need something to start with, first of all. And there are some common items for all business models you should pay attention to. For example, performance is a concern of every website. And it's not always about the after-release optimizations, but also about making correct choices right from the beginning. Fortunately, Adobe Commerce is very flexible here as well. For example, you can choose where you want to host your system, like AWS or Adobe Commerce Cloud, what storefront to use, like PWA, or even your own headless setup, similar options. So Adobe Commerce provides us options here as well. Rebecca?
Thanks, Yaroslav. And Eric, I'm going to go to you with this as well. What would be your recommendations to a business that is outlining a new or updating an e-commerce strategy?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think Yaroslav did a really nice job of setting this up. And I think it's really about starting small and thinking big, right? And so I think we've got a really exciting portfolio of really product enhancements to help you, really fulfill what those business goals are. But I think sometimes, with great flexibility, you can kind of have that blank canvas moment of where do you get started? And so I think really thinking about what those goals look like, really starting then to attribute those to the various products and services that you're trying to achieve with Adobe Commerce, I think is really a smart way of doing so. And I think, now more than ever, we're offering great flexibility with some of our new products like PW Studio or Venia Storefront, and really allowing some of the work there to help solve those needs. And so when you think about some of the things that are happening and some of the data that we're seeing as part of Adobe, that mobile conversion gap continues to widen. And so you think the flexibility then attached to something like a mobile conversion gap is a really great way to begin a conversation with a partner, begin looking at a platform like Adobe Commerce to help solve for some of those needs. Because the world now that is becoming more mobile more and more, but we're also moving into a world where you don't necessarily have to do everything at once. And so with the numbers that we continue to see, where even as recently as the holidays, we saw well over 50% of the online spend coming from smartphones. We've got to meet them at those needs, and it really comes down to the flexibility we've talked about, the iterative approach that Yaroslav had mentioned, but then really the experiences, which sounds fairly basic, but really it's a matter of meeting the customers and meeting the shoppers at those needs.
Absolutely, really, really good point there, and thank you for some of those thoughts as well, Eric. So, Yaroslav, I know that you've worked closely directly with merchants from the very start of their e-commerce project. So, can you advise on how to perhaps, we get this old question all the time, how you can speed up the project delivery and gain competitive advantage? Yeah, please, with customer examples, if you have them, would be great.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Rebecca. So before you start building your store or even building the plan, you should outline the areas you should focus on. So do not overcomplicate things from the very beginning. You will always have a chance to do it in the future. Also, be mindful about time and budget. You don't have to do everything from the very first release. And as for the example, yeah, we have a really good example of one of our recent projects. It's Burn Electrical Specialists, the famous American brand who sells different power units, particularly in B2B area. And we were able to launch the website in 1.5 months. And the key factor here was the proper planning of the initial features. So as the result, we had a good minimum viable product, or MVP. And I think we will talk about that in detail later.
Absolutely. Thanks, Yaroslav. So Burn Electrical had multiple requirements of their new platform. They needed it to scale with them, unlike their aged and limited platform. And I believe I'm quoting directly from Burn's CTO words here. Yet they needed it and they got it in 8 weeks. It's a very impressive project for a B2B company that's been around for over 50 or so years. So I do want to dig into this a little bit more, especially because speed to market and flexibility requirements, as Burn had, are really common needs that we see from our customers. This may be where an MVP approach comes in. So Yaroslav, I'm going to go to you again, if you don't mind, to say, can you kick us off with what is an MVP according to your team at Atwix, and what should be included in your MVP?
Yeah, so MVP is a version of a product with just enough features to be usable by early customers on early stages of your project. So the main idea is to choose the most crucial functional parts for the initial release. Planning the website structure might be very helpful here. So it's a good idea maybe to create a schema of different functional parts of your website, such as product listing page, product details page, home page, search checkout, etc. So, and just split features on must-have and good to have. For example, on product details page, do you need product images? Definitely, it's a common case for most stores. But do you need a sophisticated swatches system? Maybe, but maybe not in the MVP, so you can add it later. And another crucial part of MVP is planning a design. So always think of ROI, I mean return on investment here, before making unique look and feel of your website, because this part can cost like half of your budget and your timeline. Will such design lead to a major success of your MVP? In most cases, the answer is no. So the key advice here is to use default platform design as a basis and extend it with your brand, colors, fonts, buttons, etc. Later, if you want, you may have more unique design, but from the beginning, it will be more or less basic. And luckily, Adobe designers and UI experts have been working hard on the default PWA theme called EMEA, making it a great boilerplate for good design that does not require much effort. Rebecca?
Yeah, some great considerations there from different pages, must-haves be nice-to-haves, really listing them down. I know that can be tough. And of course, you touched on design and being perhaps realistic about what you actually need from a design perspective. So Eric, of course, Yaroslav just introduced EMEA as a good support, I guess, for this MVP approach. Can you, as product manager, give us your perspective on how Adobe Commerce is supporting an MVP approach?
Yeah, absolutely. So EMEA, for those who aren't familiar, really is our next generation shopping experience for Magento open source, but also Adobe Commerce, and it's been a multi-year journey. And we've taken very much of MVP approach from when this was first introduced back with Magento 2.3. And the reality is, we wanted to begin thinking about a decoupled approach, a more flexible approach to the commerce platform. And by doing so, we fast followed a lot of the API coverage that was happening by way of GraphQL that is now B2C complete, and with 2.4.3 coming just around the corner, B2B completion as well. We're really excited about the possibilities and really the experiences that's about to unlock. But I think one of the misconceptions that we often, when we talk to partners and when we talk to merchants, is really that moment of getting started. And the reality is, if you look at where we've come from over the past couple of years, we've got well over 100 different stores of various sizes, some of them fairly significant, that have begun with where we started off with an MVP approach that has continued to iterate, build into complexity, and have achieved a lot of the 80% that they were hoping to do at first. And then by the nature of using the technologies that we are, really have been building behind with P2P Studio, with Venya, and some of the next generation work, it's a lot easier to use. And so it's a bit of a mindset shift from, again, maybe your traditional experiences with, with the commerce platform, with Adobe Commerce, et cetera. But that idea and really that breakthrough moment of you just really need to start off small, but yet you can still think big along the way and look at a series of iterations from that. So we've taken that approach, both, Elena Tekjiva, who now leads the product, Dave McCauley, they're doing fantastic work bringing all this together and continuing to evolve that. And we continue to really close that gap on maybe some of those turnkey customizations that exist today, but really shouldn't be seen as barriers, because we have, quite a few even larger brands, both B2B and B2C, that have built this and have started to see some of the benefits, both in terms of conversion, in some cases well over 50% performance, which is really one of the key characteristics of the new storefronts that are being built by way of progressive web apps. And so we're really pleased with the results, but we too have also taken an iterative approach along the way. We wanted to be very thoughtful. We want to make sure that the merchant experiences themselves. So Page Builder, which was introduced with P2BA quite some time ago, we want to give those keys back to the merchants to make sure that they can make changes beyond what could just be perceived as a technology choice or an upgrade in certain respects. And I think that's what we're really proud of, not only what we've done, but how we've done it. And a big part of that has come by way of our community. We've got a very strong community with over 2,500 members, and really helped shape the product, and also 200 contributors with two amazing maintainers, both in Lars and Jordan, who've really helped us along the way for that. And so really thankful, but also I think really proud of the work that we've done. And we've taken very much that MVP approach in the product itself, but has also then applied, as Yaroslav had said, from an agency standpoint, when you start working with customers on that, iterative approach on where you might get started for your own implementation, for your own projects.
Thanks, Eric. So that start small, think big applies to Adobe product management as well. And thank you for the nod to all of the contributors there as well to our own products. So Yaroslav, I know you have a lot of experience with merchants using this approach, and I'm going to bring us to another question we get all the time from them. It's all about ROI. How can we make sure to optimize the ROI from an MVP approach? Perhaps a tricky one for you, I'm sorry, but I'll leave that with you.
Yeah, sure. So the short answer is just use as much out-of-the-box functionality as possible. So let's think in the following way. You have a clean platform installation with the initial configuration, and most likely you need to populate it with some data like products, maybe something else. Then in many cases, you already have a system that can do its job pretty well. And Adobe Commerce Platform out of the box provides as many features as maybe no other e-commerce platform on the market. So if you need something business specific on top of it, feel free to add it, but do not invest in reinventing the wheel and rebuilding the existing components if you don't have to do that. As practice shows, you will end up in the infinite loop in terms of releasing your product.
It's some simple but some great advice there, actually, on really look at what the platform that you're looking at provides out of the box. So thank you. Some great tips there. Eric, did you want to add any further advice from you in terms of optimizing the ROI?
Yeah, so I mean, I think, Yaroslav covered it fairly well, but I think, I really would encourage merchants really to think about where that starting point might be. Some of our best examples are actually in the Adobe Experience Manager world, where even just our Venya shopping components, in the cases of Sazerac, in the cases of TiVo.com, and quite a few others, are just used. And so you're not necessarily thinking about the product details pages. You're not thinking about a full end-to-end commerce experiences. The world of static commerce experiences are changing. And so you're really starting to think about things like just the components as your entryway into what ROI might mean for you. And so ROI for merchants may mean conversion. It may mean efficiency as well. The work that we're doing is efficient with regard to the amount of usage that you'll be applying to your infrastructure. And we're also thinking about things like engagement, which we don't probably talk enough about, where the time spent on pages is really that key indicator for the purchase, and of course add to cart as well. And so it really comes down to, in some cases, looking at it slightly differently of the cost of not doing. And really, I think starting small again, thinking big, I think is a great mindset heading into it. But there's a lot of potential here. But again, I know there's a lot of change that could be perceived with this. But there are great ways to start very small with some basic A/B testing strategies, and maybe some smaller stores or some smaller scenarios that may help you get started on as a merchant as well.
Derek, I'm going to dive us into part 3. So we're going to go, I guess, dive into something that merchants need to consider and prepare for early on. And we've been talking about this preparation the whole way throughout so far. But this is something that you need to prepare for early on, but with your live e-commerce store in mind. We are going to take a few moments just to talk about the current market with e-commerce all around the world. Companies these days are competing for the highest performance search engine rankings even. So Yaroslav, I'm going to kick off with you with the following question. How are performance and search engines interlinked? And what are the myths around that? Because we know there are some myths around that these days.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And it's, first of all, it's a question about how to measure your performance. Mm-hmm. And I see a popular trend now where people are using Google PageSpeed Insight score as a metric that somehow is supposed to be connected to the fact how good your store is, including your SEO. But in fact, chasing the good score there often leads to sacrificing good user experience. How exactly? Just remove all the images, fonts, styles, everything from your website. Just leave the blank page with some text, and yeah, you will have a great PageSpeed Insight score. But does it mean that customers will love your website more? I don't think so. So first of all, you should care how good your website is in terms of usability. So the main question here is, can I, as a customer, go to your website, guess how to find a product easily, then get enough info about this product and purchase it without additional frictions? That's it. And frankly speaking, it doesn't matter, will I get the page loaded in 300 milliseconds or 600 milliseconds? Sure thing is, if your website speed is takes 5 seconds to load, it will ruin your experience. But once again, we are talking about the real customer experience, not about the score. Fortunately, Google introduced a new great set of metrics called Core Web Vitals. And if you visited Meet Magento UK yesterday, there was a great presentation from Google, and there was a mention that Core Web Vitals is metric of customer joy in terms of using your website. And really, it's true. It's not about some numbers. It's about green or red, passing or not passing the Core Web Vitals. And basically, the Core Web Vitals is about how fast to pass the score, you need to have a fast enough website without some jumpy components during the page load, and without a necessary overhead in terms of heavy scripts and blocking scripts, etc. And talking about Adobe Commerce, you may have green Core Web Vitals even with the default theme. So, but in most cases, it might be challenging because the default theme uses traditional server-side rendering, which might not be the most efficient solution for now, now where we have different modern solutions. And fortunately, Adobe Commerce has a great API and may be used as a headless solution for alternative storefronts, including PW Studio.
Thanks, Yaroslav. So don't sacrifice customer experience for speed. Usability is crucial here. And pay attention to the Google Core Web Vitals. And I know you mentioned Meet Magento UK yesterday. I had a great session on that. I believe you have written some blogs on this as well. So I'm either plugging you there or putting you on the spot to quickly write a blog. So, but thank you for that, Yaroslav. Okay, there is another trend that we are hearing merchants talk about or ask us about these days, and as well as performance with search engines, this one is also really important, and of course linked. The trend I'm talking about here, it's all around mobile, headless, and the closely linked PWA. So Eric, as our representative expert in Adobe on headless and PWA, would you mind shedding some light on this technology and forecasts on its development in the future, if you have them? And we'll keep this to a couple of minutes. I know you could speak for days on this topic.
Very good. No, thank you, Rebecca. So yeah, I think we often blend both headless and PWA, and the reality is they're different, right? And so from a headless perspective, we're starting to look at the layers of the commerce platform individually. And so right now, we're taking a very coupled approach where the APIs of Magento open source, of Adobe Commerce, as you know it, are exposed to help you achieve the experiences that you're trying to set out as a merchant. But one of those experiences is really a next generation storefront, a next generation front end that we're creating by way of PWA, by way of Venya, to help you achieve exactly that. And I think that is really a headless approach. Yeah, it's really the idea of powering the possible. The web is just one part of that. And when you start to think about this, there's a lot of terminology, and I think we all get that. And the reality is, understanding that really cleanly and understanding the benefits of each one of these, I think it's really important. When you make your choices, when you figure out when you're trying to get started as part of that. And so I really like what Yaroslav had to say about performance. And I think the reality is performance is really just table stakes. Nobody wants and nobody's ever said this store is too fast. I think we should all continue to look at what we do with a performance mindset, but it really does come down to experience. And so things like Core Web Vitals are starting to take a very quantitative look using techniques that they call cumulative layout shifts. So think about the shifting that happens on a page that you probably don't see as much on native that you would maybe in some examples you've seen yourself on the web. We're trying to minimize those and really look at those as signals in search results to help elevate those and make sure that when you're looking for something, that those are the experiences, those are the results that you see. And so we're really encouraged by that. We continue to work on that both internally and also with partners and merchants to make sure that they achieve those goals as well. Coming back to, as a merchant, discoverability and distribution and those key characteristics that allow them to, again, bring more traffic into their store. And so for us, yeah, performance is a big piece of this. Headless is a means for us to really add more flexibility and really start to decouple the platform, as you know, and we continue to work more in that direction, and we're taking a composable approach to doing so. And so that example I mentioned before, where just the Venya shopping cart as it's applied to Tiva.com here in the States, but also some key brands like Sazerac and a few others, you have that flexibility that is no longer at the page level. You're not necessarily thinking about product detail pages, product listing, checkout. It's the components themselves as it applies to maybe a slightly different context that may just be more content oriented. So we're doing a lot of that, and it's really working with the teams, but also looking at some really interesting, I would say some really interesting permutations within the Adobe family as well. And so we'll be we'll continue to share and continue to work towards that in the future.
Brilliant, thanks, Eric. And I know that is a topic that people often have a lot of questions on. And Eric is a fountain of knowledge here. So I'm going to remind you about the Q&A box. And while you are noting down some questions based on what Eric was saying there, I am going to move us to the next section. We have about 15 minutes left in this presentation, so we will have time for questions. Please do put them in the Q&A box on the right-hand side of your screen. So we know that there's a lot to figure out about what to consider while you're preparing your e-commerce strategy. And I think, in fact, we actually started with about 10 sections to this presentation and managed to get it down to 4. We know there's a lot to consider. Do you adopt an MVP approach? Do you go with PWA? Choosing the right platform and really considering the features that you need. Does it have it out of the box? There is also another question, a really important one, and that is, how do we make this work? And also, I would add to this, can I get help in making these decisions? And for this, at Adobe Commerce, we are very confident that there is a secret sauce. we strongly believe that choosing the right partner that can help you deliver the expected outcome within the expected timeline is crucial. And I'm talking about an agency partner here, and not trying to do it all in-house. So when I heard about Burn Electrical, the client story that Yaroslav told earlier on, it's really clear that the timeline of 8 weeks delivery, I believe it was, for the B2B web store, and Yaroslav, correct me on that if I'm wrong, I believe it was 8 weeks delivery for the B2B web store. That would not be easy with the wrong partner. So what we have done is we've collected a couple of tips for you. And again, we probably got this down to, I think we got this down to 7. And these are tips in terms of choosing the right partner to work with, for your team to work with. So first and foremost, really important, is 1, check the certifications and specializations of the agency that you're considering working with, to really make sure that they're true experts with a solid background in the technology that you want to work with. Tip number 2, make sure that you are aware of the partner agency, their team structure, geographic locations, and their customer support approach for when you are live, as well as learning about and even asking for some customer case references of other clients that they're working with. Number 3, use independent websites with reviews, check them. Number 4, do you need an agency partner that can handle complex IT integration requirements? If you do, make sure that the agency can become a true team extension to your company. And number 5, I believe we're on, reach out for references. And so, for example, I'll use Atwix here, of course. I know Atwix provides consulting on existing web stores' performance with recommendations for further improvements. And that might not be, that consulting on web performance might not be something that every agency provides. Number 6, it is a bonus if the agency you choose has a good partnership with the technology vendor, Adobe being the technology vendor, and in this case, Atwix being the agency. And last but not least, consider whether you need an in-house developer or a freelancer or an agency. There are a couple of different options there, and choose the ones that you prefer and fits your team and your business. And while I've been talking, I have put up a bit of information on Atwix in particular. We mentioned earlier on that we have the benefit of having Yaroslav here. Please do ask him questions. I like to ask him tricky questions. And of course, he is a Magento master. So now I believe it is time. We've 10 minutes left on the nose. So it's time for a few questions. I'm going to pause for just a couple of seconds and let you type them into the Q&A box. Okay, I'm not going to keep you too long in silence. So I do have one question here, actually. And I know, actually, that Yaroslav, I'm going to put you on the spot here, but we got this question just in advance of this session. So while the audience is typing, I'm going to put you on the spot and I'm going to ask you, as an agency working with Adobe Commerce, how many clients do you already have with PWA? And this is you guys at Atwix. How many clients do you have in PWA? And do you see a trend of moving towards headless solutions, or do you see more demand for this approach from your clients? It's specifically on headless solutions, PWA.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. That's a very good question. I would say that most of our clients this year, most of our projects that we are working on now, they are based on PWA Studio, and I believe that this trend will grow, and maybe by the end of this year or maybe beginning of the next year, we will see even more. So the main reason of that, because like PWA Studio already has all necessary features that we need usually for e-commerce, for like successful stores. And if we need something on top of it, it's much easier to add it with PWA Studio than with standard Magento storefront. I'm not talking about the marketplace extensions. There's still some work to be done there, but the popular extensions vendor for Adobe Commerce, they already provide options like plug and play options for PWA Studio. So you can just purchase an extension and install it in the traditional way, almost traditional way. So yeah, and another reason is like the possibility to combine mobile experience, I mean a mobile application experience and traditional website without having separate applications sounds like a good idea for most of our merchants.
Yaroslav, and as you were giving us the answer there, thank you for that. We have a couple of questions come in. So I'm going to go to one from our audience here. Somebody's asking, what were some key features for the 8 weeks MVP? So that's the Burn Electrical MVP. Some key features there, if you remember them.
Basically, it was a B2B portal. So Magento or Adobe Commerce, the B2B module set of Adobe Commerce already provides the basic functionality we need. And also we have to add something on top of it, like the particular unique part of this business model is you have a wizard, or let's say like configurator that you can use for building your own power supply. So that was the crucial feature that we had to have on the website. And also, as I already outlined, we didn't have to develop some sophisticated design. We just used the standard Magento Luma theme and just added some branding styles, colors, fonts. So that was the main idea of this project. And that was like, there was an interesting concept there called lowercase MVP. So we already were talking about MVP, but lowercase MVP is something like invented by us in the progress. So it's like we had MVP, and then we thought, are there some features that we can cut off the MVP and make it like lowercase MVP, and then just add these features during the next releases? So it was really exciting experience.
I love this idea, and maybe I should have heard about it already, but I haven't heard about a lowercase MVP. You speaking about this project, so thanks for that, Yaroslav. And Eric, there's one for you here as well. It's on PWA. Will PWA be a default solution, do you think, for most e-commerce platforms in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we do this right, it's responsive sites did 10 plus years ago. At some point, we're just not going to be talking about PWA. It's going to be the standards. And so our mission really with what we're doing around PW Studio, Venya, the storefront as a whole is that the default experience for Adobe Commerce, right? And so we're going to follow that same trend in many ways. But yes, that's our intent. That's certainly where the market is heading. And again, eventually, similar to what we saw with responsive, you didn't, now people aren't talking about RWD stores or anything of that nature. We're going to take the same. This becomes more prevalent.
Thanks, Eric. And Yaroslav, I think this might be one for you, but both keep it in mind. This one here, I believe, is from, let me see, from Ahmed. And the question is, I'm running a PWA platform. Sorry, excuse me. I'm running the Adobe Commerce platform, the Magento platform, and I'm facing performance issues. The Google score is 11. So what recommendations do you have for Ahmed?
Just forget about Google PageSpeed Insight score. It's not something you should use for your performance. So first of all, I would advise to contact some developer or agency just to analyze why exactly and where exactly your website is slow. And in that way, this developer will be able to provide advices for you how you can improve the performance, what should be removed from your website, or what can be optimized. So it's hard to say like in general what you need to do, but contacting the good developer is the very first thing you need to do.
Thanks, Yaroslav, and I hope that answered your question, Ahmed. We've only got 3 minutes left. I promised to keep us to 45 minutes. So I'm going to, we might have time for one, maybe two. Eric, I've got one for you here, and that is actually on AI now. What AI solutions are available in Adobe Commerce out of the box?
Yeah, really exciting movement in this area in our overall product roadmap, and it started off with product recommendations last year. So the team has made really great progress on some of the standard offerings that happened by way of 2.4, but they've continued to enhance with visual recommendations and also support for headless, which of course includes P2A Studio and Venia. And so we're starting to really bring these capabilities more and more into the fold, but maybe even more importantly, live search was introduced and really has been years in the making, and really starts to capitalize on really and really an intelligent set of search results, but also faceting in other aspects of the management experience that of search for merchants, and that's now generally available as well, and you can find that on the. Those two are probably the best examples, and we're continuing to look at other areas where AI can really help shape that commerce experience more so than ever before.
Brilliant, thank you. And I know that there's a couple of questions we haven't got to. Alex, I believe there's one from an Alex in our audience. But I promised 45 minutes, and I want to stick to it. A couple of really important things, though. We will share the video recording, so the replay of the event as soon as possible via email. So do stay tuned for that if there's anything you want to listen back to. So thank you, everybody. For those of you who did just have the 45 minutes, we can let you go. And Eric and Yaroslav, I guess if you want, you can turn off your cameras.